This video is going to be yet another unnecessary commentary on something, but I'm involved in a project, so I'm going to talk about it. Stop Killing Games is an initiative in the European Union and has the ability to affect everyone on the internet in the same way that a particular country or many countries in the EU decided that you needed to have a cookie warning on every fucking website, which I detest. This will have an effect. In plain English, it prohibits publishers from disabling video games you've already been able to buy from them forever. It makes it to where they have to provide some methodology, a patch, a crack, whatever, the same thing that piracy people do, to make it to where it works, whether they want you to run it or not. Now, you might think, well, that seems a little excessive. I sell you a car. I put a LoJack on it that lets me kill the ignition switch. I don't own it anymore, but I still have the power to turn it off. Or I send out a message every day to leave it on. Then one day I stop sending the message. At least you have to have the instructions on how to remove the kill switch and the tracking device. And before anybody says anything, lots of used car companies sold cars with these features because they sold them with the presumption that a person would have to pay them off, even if they'd paid them off entirely at the first place, and then left the equipment in place and sold data about them. Oops, we didn't mean to leave the equivalent to a cheap cell phone in your car with the ability to shut off the ignition. This prohibits publishers from irrevocably disabling a video game, meaning you should be able to change it back by some method. They don't specify it. If they sold it. Now, this also includes, if you're not aware of it, a bunch of other caveats, but let's go on. This is a EU citizens initiative. If it gets 1 million signatures or more out of the entire population of the European Union, or it may just be the United Kingdom, or maybe each website has it, and it's an online petition. The European Union is legally compelled to properly do the following. Take it into consideration. Discuss it openly. Provide a proper response to 1 million people who want them to do this. Now, they can choose to ignore it or choose to take the bribes. Did I mention you have to do a cookie policy no matter where you're on the planet because everybody wants to be compliant with the European Union? Then there's a YouTuber, ironically naming himself Piratesoftware, who said that it's about live service or online-only games, or whatever you want to call them, games, that are by definition very integrated into the cloud or the internet, not on your computer, being remade into single-player, which is not even mentioned at all in the initiative or discussion about it, period, full stop. And he says it's not possible. He's wrong. I'm going to explain why on a very limited basis about something I'm digging up and resurrecting like a zombie. Pyrite Legacy, a video game that will combine Rust Legacy 2013, 14, 15, and 16 files, along with the server to go with them so that you can have the entire Rust Legacy thing work on your computer. Because it's sitting on my computer right now, working in 2015 mode. I found a way to combine the server and client for the reasons I'm going to bring up about virtually every program that exists that has the ability to run as a game you play and connect to a server that has the following characteristics. When you start the game, are you able to physically get away with starting it with it unplugged from the internet? Offline start. That means a good or a majority of the code that are bare minimum, bare bones to get it running, will work offline. Now, I'm not talking about Steam. I'm talking about the game itself. We're going to use Rust Legacy as an example. And I imagine that Gary Newman and the rest of Facepunch Studios can chime in here and correct me when I'm wrong. But here's the thing. I just did the test offline. It doesn't fucking require anything from the internet. So here we go. Number one, when you start the game, does it show obviously a component or a part of the game that's in the full game that you could find somehow. Doesn't matter if it's cheating or not. Yes, the boot screen that shows the burning barrel, or what was a burning barrel, and shows shadows moving in what appears to be Split Town's garage building, that's actually a separate map that's in the local files. And technically is inside of Rust Island 2013 somewhere. The reason I know that is I'm able to check on that depending on the version. Some of the versions don't bother doing that. They just have it as a local file only. It's not on the server, but the point is it can. Second, the server version, which I have possession of, is nearly the same file set. It's actually identical in almost every case to the client version. Their 1 gigabyte server and game have almost identical behavior, including the same boot up screen if you don't tell it not to show it, and then it tries running the graphical user interface to bring up the boot screen, and then it doesn't, and it just shows a black screen unless you tell it not to show that, and it just brings up the console and runs the server headless, you might say. And if you're not aware of it, what that means is you can take a very small portion of the server files, throw it into the client. I was using a Rust Legacy Final Edition 2016 December, right before they pulled it off of Steam, to prove that this would work. I ran into a problem that has nothing to do with it, but the point is, the qualification is, can it be operated not offline and single player like Piratesoftware is talking about? And if you're watching this video, for some reason, if you want to promote my channel, Piratesoftware, please step on this. I'm the turd you're stepping in. Can you not do it? Are you compulsive? So here we go. The reason you can do that with that particular game is the game, like virtually every game, has to start off as non-server based. You can't start with a database server game and a client being separate because Windows. The operating system, whether it's Linux, Mac OS, Windows, iOS, doesn't matter. ARM processor versus x86, none of it matters. Something will break, so you eliminate every layer of failure. You make failure impossible as much as possible. The easiest way to do that is to put the server and the client files on the same computer, which means you get it working without it working over a network or an internet, because the internet and the network may not behave themselves, and then you make it to where it works externally. By definition, you're just putting the client and server in the same folder. A game like Doom, you could look up the information on it, you could set up over a pseudo network or a real network, depending on how you're looking at it, depending on which one you think is real, and make it to where 4 people could play against each other. Now what that meant is you could also set up 3 screens, actually 4, play the game and have each one of them represent a different position, and it was just playing on the same game. Off of a server. You are acting as server, the others are acting as client. There's also peer-to-peer mode, where all of them act as the server. You might know where I'm going here. So let's say you have live service games, or service as a product, or the crappy things we have these days. All of them have to start off with some not necessarily enormous database containing the code. For instance, to map out everything in Rust Legacy is a gigabyte. However, to map it out, if you're not displaying it on the screen, it's a bunch of data points in a file that's massively reduced. It's a hitbox diameter for something round or something square with certain orientations, maybe 4 or 5 parameters per item, and that's it. And you're one of the items. That's the way it's done when you can see it and when you can't see it. Otherwise, you're writing your program very poorly. Let's not talk about AAA games seeming to go out of their way to find some way to fuck this up. The point I'm making here is that making a game stop working like they did with Rust Legacy, they didn't make it stop working. In case you haven't noticed, I've been playing it. Many people play Rust Legacy. It's a 1 gigabyte game. It was written in 2013, and the last actual update to the code that was of any importance was really 2014. Newer versions, like 2015 and the 2016 I run, have minor improvements and maybe a little bug squashing and maybe a little stability fixes, but the point is, it's essentially the same code. Yes, I can run a diff file and find the differences, but they're very minor. They're important, but they're not absolutely deal-breaking. Many of the files in the 2016 version say 2014 internal ID dates. They're just gone through a repack on that day as the finalized version that was put up on Steam. And yes, I am using the Steam version, which means I had to remove the Steam requirement because I can't run it otherwise. I'm running the Steam version of the server and client. Both of them worked. Why? Because that's what you would download. Everybody would download those. It would just use Steam as an interim thing. Because internally at Facepunch, they weren't running the Steam version until they got it working, and then they would apply whatever they needed to make it require Steam or go through Steam to authenticate. But Steam games, ever since Gmod, done by Gary, have to have technically available to them, at least somewhat, offline mode. It's not single player versus live service game. It's offline versus online, or more accurately, server encumbered. The game can be altered to where it ignores Steam because Steam wasn't necessarily providing the location for all the servers, the server list. So someone can go in and find that string, and I found it by opening the file, and change it to say, instead of playrust.com, rustlegacy.eu, which is what rustlegacy.eu uses. They have it update itself. And it either injects it in RAM to have your list of playable servers you can click on, or it outright ignores any other code and just inserts that instead. This is how games should work. Yes, the people at Facepunch can sue people like me. YouTube can scream as loud as they want to that I'm advocating piracy. It's not true. Yelling it loudly and having the power to bludgeon me into submission and quiet me out and make me shut up doesn't change that I'm not doing that. What I'm explaining to you is the nature of a game cannot, in almost all cases, cannot be made to where it would require you have a server running while you're developing the game if you haven't built the fucking server at that location. Nor can it absolutely, under any conditions, require that it have no code on it that would allow it to work independently in an offline mode. Otherwise, every time there was a screw-up, you'd have your game crash while you're developing it. Almost no games have these kind of prerequisites and presumptions. Unity game engine, 4.5 and 3 point something before with the original in 2013, all came with the ability to do this. They also came with an option when I was fiddling around with Unity game engine to make it to where it would work in offline, online, single-player, multiplayer, peer-to-peer. Any of these could be checkmarked. And guess what? I'm looking for the checkmarks in the DLLs. I haven't been talking much about this project because I've had no success. Yesterday and today, I managed to get the server running. Yeah, it screwed around with some things and got to do some things that were unpredictable, and then I fused them together, and it worked, which meant I had a 1.01 gigabyte file set that would be a server and client for a little while. It obviously had some conflicts. I just threw it together willy-nilly. I'm not debugging it right now. I'm doing this video, but you get the idea. The game itself can be the server in almost all games. Yeah, but that's 2013 technology. Watch everybody like Boundary Break video episodes where people add a tool to a game, run it in local only mode or local server mode, which is, by the way, it's called local host mode with Rust Legacy, and run around exploring the game by going outside the map and doing all sorts of tools because you're in admin mode, because you log in as an admin, and suddenly you can't be banned for cheating because you're just an admin. By the way, if you see people on these servers and they appear to be cheating, all they did is guess the admin password by typing archon.password and then guess the password. People were singularly stupid about that in some cases. They could fly around and do whatever they want to, and then they'd leave. The point I'm making here is Piratesoftware fixating on something he can either easily communicate, which may be his motivation, or, if I was being insulting, easily understand, is not an expert in the subject and doesn't know what he's talking about. I don't care if he's written programs. If he knows better, he's lying to you. If he doesn't know better, he needs to be told that he doesn't know what he's talking about. And he definitively doesn't know what he's talking about concerning this. Go ahead and watch the two videos below at the 1700 second mark. You can watch part of it, or you can watch a synopsis done by Voice Critical. Again, I'm trying to unkill a game to where literally the zombie version, it'll have zombies in it if I get it right, will be resurrected almost exactly a decade after they remove the game. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. I'll need it.